All right, folks, it's a Wednesday morning and a lot is going on in the world. And we're going to talk about that as well as possibly having a special guest coming in very shortly as well. That'll be talking about AI and a number of other things that happen in that space. But first, let me catch you up on what's happening in the world. So, definitely, Gaza doctors are struggling to save hospital blast survivors as Middle East rage grows. And Biden is visiting Israel and suggested that the Gaza hospital explosion was done by the other team. So definitely that is what is going on because both Hamas and Israel are trading blame for that particular hospital blast. And Vladimir Putin is touting his solidarity with China in Xi's pitch for a new world order as crisis grips the Middle East. Putin is visiting Beijing amid conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. So that is definitely something that we are seeing in the world as well. And also, Biden will stress humanitarian aid, avoiding deeper conflict in Israel, but is scrapping the Jordan stop. So that is something else that we are seeing in the news. And Rishi Sunak is warning against the rush to judgment over the Gaza hospital explosion. So that is something that we're seeing from the British and all in that space because the British Premier Sunak fails to endorse calls for a ceasefire. So that is something else that we are seeing. And of course, there are a number of candidates that are having their stances on what's going on in the Middle East as well. So that is something else that we are seeing. And definitely we are seeing that the Pentagon has released footage of hundreds of highly concerning aircraft that is dealing with some risky behavior because the U.S. is accusing China's Air Force of risky behavior in the skies above the Pacific. So there is even some conflicts going on in the Pacific as well. So that's something else that we are seeing in the news and all along those lines. And of course, there's all kinds of things happening in the U.S. as well. So definitely we know a number of things are taking place in that. At least remains of at least 189 people removed from funeral home that offered the green burials. I talked about that. I think that was last week. So we are definitely seeing an investigation into that particular situation as well. And it looks like Jim Jordan has lost in the first round of the House Speaker votes and is scrambling for support on day two. He's trying to still become the Speaker of the House and all in that kind of way. And the Victoria's Secrets founders have cut ties with Harvard after dismal failure to condemn Hamas. So definitely looks like there is some fallback to some of what the students have done as well. And a Harvard student have been doxxed after writing anti-Israel letters and all in that space. So definitely we are seeing a lot of things even in the United States as well in terms of protests and also in terms of the reaction of the public to both the protests as well as to what was taking place in the Middle East and all in that kind of way. And it looks like then the the Jordan Van Der Slot case is still going on, and there is going to be details revealed of Natalie Holloway's death in that particular case as well. So that is something else that we are seeing in the news and all in that kind of space. And we also know that a brawl broke out after the mom of a 16-year-old murder victim claims the killer was laughing at her face, and that was in the case over there in Los Angeles that was going on in that space because the brawl broke out in Texas court after Frank Delone Jr. admits to killing his 16-year-old girlfriend, Diamond Alvera. So that is something that is going on in the world as well. And it looks like prosecutors are going to be recharging Alex Baldwin for the Rush shooting. That was the Rush movie set shooting and all in that space. So I've actually had the pleasure of talking to some people from that whole Hollywood industry, and they said that those kind of things should be more secure and all along those lines. But I'm surprised somewhat that they are going to bring that case back to Alex Baldwin. But it looks like that is what is taking place. And definitely, it looks like the number of other things that are taking place in the world as well. As a matter of fact, the Scholastic Book Fair is grappling with diverse titles amid a rise in book bans. So that is something that we are seeing as well. But right now, we're going to get into some of our other conversation, including with our special guest. So glad that he was able to make it. So we're going to see what Stephen Jerkoff has to say about AI and all along those lines, because this is definitely a conversation we've been talking about a lot here on the network and in general. So I'm very much interested to see what Miss say about, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, about what is going on in that space. We've even heard about deep fakes, and we've heard about a number of people that are concerned about a lot of aspects of AI. I had not heard that there was even an AI wedding officiant, but apparently there is going on as well. So definitely looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about that as well. So definitely we're going to see what folks have to say and all along those lines. So bringing in Stephen, and hopefully he's got able to bring on his camera and all along those lines, and we can have a conversation about the nature of AI and how AI is going and all in that kind of way. So definitely looking forward to a robust conversation and all in that kind of space. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, I know when Harlan reached out to me, I was surprised because we've actually had Stephen Rao, who is our councilman from Morrisville, which is a town here in North Carolina. He's been very much into innovation and a big fan of innovation because he actually works for a software company, if I'm remembering correctly, the clients that he has, and all along those lines. And actually, one of the founders, Kim Calhoun of Pod TV, is an engineer by trade. So I know she's been following the AI stories as well. And I know that there have been some concerns about the nature of AI as well. So, like I said, I was surprised when I was looking at some of the things that you've got going on, and even your book, that there was an officiant. So somebody had actually, I guess, had a wedding using AI, and that was actually surprising to me. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about your book, and we'll go into a couple of the questions as well.
Well, the book is The New Roaring Twenties, and it's about what's going to happen in technology and artificial intelligence over the next 10 years. It was originally started by Paul Zane Pilzer, who has been my friend for more than 40 years. We've been partners on a variety of businesses in Russia and China and in the US. And Paul and his wife, Lisa, called me in early 2022 to ask me if I would help Paul finish the book because he was very ill. So I was able to do that, and it's Paul's book, and it's his 13th book, and he's an economist and one of the most interesting and brilliant people that I've ever met. And we were able to take it over the finish line. The book is now out, and it's available on all of the online services, including Amazon and Walmart, and then also in the bookstores. And the book deals with primarily the impact that technology will have on our lives. And in particular, artificial intelligence is going to be pervasive. We're not going to be able to avoid it. It's going to be part of our day-to-day lives, and it's going to be moving very quickly. We've had artificial intelligence as part of our devices and our cell phones, our automobiles, and the like since World War II. And when Alan Turing developed the solution to the Nazi Enigma code, that was one of the first applications of artificial intelligence to solve a pressing problem. And since that time, it's primarily been the military and various of the large tech companies who have spent, at this point, billions of dollars developing their own form of artificial intelligence. And if one watches the news, we've now seen the evolution of what is called generative AI, which is based on large language models and is able to create content and solve complex problems. And it's hurtling towards the solution to perhaps many of the problems we face in the world today, including climate change, medicine and diagnoses, pharmaceuticals, logistics, all kinds of areas where AI will be beneficial. However, it also poses certain dangers that we need to be cognizant of, and
Yeah,
each of us as individuals have a point of view.
Yeah. One of the things that I know that you had said in some of your kind of pre-conversation points that I got from Harlan, which actually might have surprised me and surprised some of the audience members as well, was that you had mentioned the fact that, and I think you kind of alluded to it, that social media is only a crude form of AI. And I know a lot of times over the past decade or so, we've been using a lot of social media. So I was wondering if you can maybe explain how that is working and how that is a crude form of AI, because maybe some people don't realize that it is a crude form of AI. That's something we've been using ever since Facebook first came out. And of course, Facebook is only one form of social media, but there are a number of other ones as well.
Well, Facebook's a good example of the effect that artificial intelligence has already had on our lives. It automatically refers us to topics and areas that we may be interested in, and connects us with people, places, and items that arguably we've had some involvement with. And it does this automatically, even when you really are not looking for it or really want it. Mm-hmm. And we've all seen the corrosive effect that social media has had on our national narrative and on our relationships with other people, and the amount of disinformation that has been spewed, which influences people's behavior, particularly our young people. It's a challenging time to be young, because young people with social media, it's a part of their daily lives for the most part, and it has bombarded them every day with information that may or may not be correct and may shape their behaviors. So it's something to be very cautious about and concerned about. And now we're dealing with artificial intelligence that's going to be much more advanced, much more sophisticated, and has the ability to act, in some cases creating, very realistic fake images that are going to confuse and influence. Fortunately, on some level, we've gotten to the point that we're kind of suspicious of what we see online, unless, some people just accept it as prima facie accurate. But a lot of people are suspicious, and that may help us get through, particularly the next election cycle.
Yeah, definitely, that could be an interesting thing. I know that there has been some concerns about the use of AI even on the political front, but before we get to that, definitely I wanted to talk about it on the job front, because I know a lot of people have been concerned about the nature of AI and how it could impact the jobs that exist. And I know that there are definitely AI avenues that are using a lot of things. Oh, there we go. And I was just wondering your thoughts around that, because that is something that I've been hearing more and more about, is people concerned about their job safety, for lack of a better term, because they are feeling that AI could come in and take their jobs. I think that was part of the conversation around both the writer's strike and the automobile strike, but that was one of the issues that they were concerned about. But I was just wondering your take about this, and is this something that humanity should be concerned about?
Well, it's a legitimate concern. technology, and particularly AI, is decreasing the necessity of many jobs and changing the nature of certain jobs. And this is something that's not only going to affect the manual labor, but also middle management and people who perform tasks which, due to the efficiency of artificial intelligence, will no longer be necessary. So, Paul Pilzer, my friend and co-author, has projected that at the end of the next 8 to 10 years, that the amount of people working will decrease from the current approximately 50% of the population to roughly 30%. And as a result, there's going to be some social unrest, a great deal of dislocation, and some very serious issues with respect to the day-to-day lives of a lot of people. So, I mean, there is a reason to be concerned. The way one attempts to deal with that in one's personal life is to make an attempt to understand artificial intelligence and the impact it's going to have on your lives, which means, something as simple as, which can be done, accessing ChatGPT-4 online and starting to use it and starting to understand how it is not only a danger and a problem, but it's also a tool that all of us are going to need to use. When I speak to young people, including my daughter, who lives in Sydney, Australia, I emphasize the point that you kind of need, even if you are not a technology person or a scientist or an engineer. And it's fairly straightforward, and it can be accomplished, particularly by young people who, are natives to the digital world. People my age are immigrants to that world, and it takes us a while to, get familiar with it and use the tools. But AI is a tool. So one of the ways you can is to be familiar with, understand the issues, and educate oneself. It's a small step, but it's an important step because it'll help you figure out how this will impact you in your work and in your life, and it certainly will.
Yeah, one of the other things that people have been concerned about is this notion of deep fakes, and you kind of alluded to that earlier as well, and how it could even be used in a kind of a negative aspect as well. I know it sounds more like science fiction, but apparently it's becoming more of a reality. And I'm
Well,
hearing people that are saying that they could literally fake a candidate or fake a political situation and all along those lines. So I was just wondering your thoughts around that. And is that something that we should be concerned about also?
yes, we should be concerned. We're going to learn a lot about this in the next election cycle, particularly if at kind of the last minute we get a candidate making a promulgation, which is a deep fake, frightens people and influences votes. We may well see some of that. The large social media companies are sensitive to this. And although, they're all profit generating machines, they also recognize that if they're embarrassed by this sort of thing, it's not good for business. So there is a sensitivity to it, and I am cautiously optimistic that a lot of it will be prevented or be recognized very quickly and eliminated. But it is a serious risk. As you mentioned, this is also a concern in the Screen Actors Guild negotiations. There's a concern that the image of either prominent actors or workaday actors will be used in ways that is not consistent with what the actor wants or what the contract is. And right now, I own a movie studio and have produced or distributed over 250 movies. So, and I have businesses streaming services and e-commerce businesses that use AI. So this is, something that's on my mind in dealing with guild actors, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The guild needs to be very sensitive about this and fairly sophisticated and kind of look around corners to see what the future may hold. And probably where this will land is contracts need to be much more specific with respect to artificially generated images, which they really are not right now. I know because I read and write a lot of these contracts. Further, there needs to be a very bright line which distinguishes between use of an AI image in a project that is contracted for and specified versus using it in other projects that the actor is not being compensated for and did not agree to. And I think this will be a negotiation that'll land in a proper place. So I think this will be fine, and there will be a bright line drawn in this regard. But there's going to be a lot of litigation related to, in the case of the Writers Guild, the use of artificial intelligence to write scripts and to create characters. And in the case of the Screen Actors Guild, there's going to be a lot of controversy regarding the use of images, the right of publicity, the right of privacy. This could be very good for the lawyers.
It sounds like it and everything. I know that you would also talk about AI technology, restructuring even the business of energy and that current balance of power. Because I know that even, like I mentioned earlier, that the leaders of China and the leaders of Russia were meeting, and I know that there's even conversations around AI in that nature as well. So just wondering your thoughts around AI, because it seems like it's a major issue even in that confrontational U.S. relationship with China and Russia. But I was wondering your take on that and how AI can be playing in the geopolitical front as well as the energy front.
Well, you've cited a number of very important issues. And with respect to energy, on balance, I think AI is going to be very helpful. It's going to improve the efficiency of alternative energy approaches. It's going to also improve the efficiency rather of fossil fuels and the ability to extract them at less cost. It's certainly going to enable us to create some different approaches. If we are open to it, nuclear energy, fission, and perhaps even fusion can be expedited dramatically by artificial intelligence simply because these techniques involve quantum mechanics and quantum computing, and frankly, AI, due to its capacity to extract large amounts of data and make complicated calculations, really will help in those areas. So if there's an openness in our society, and this is a controversial area, of course, to embrace nuclear energy, the efficiency of that will be dramatically increased by artificial intelligence. Right now, the countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, to a lesser extent Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, are spending billions on artificial intelligence for two reasons. First of all, to increase their efficiency of extracting and disseminating fossil fuels, but also because they want a place at the table regarding competing on the various non-energy related applications of artificial intelligence. They want to compete in that area. And the US, I think in general, is not that concerned about that issue, other than the fact that there is a dramatic concern in the government regarding China's use of AI with respect to military applications or competing with the US. And right now, there are a number of export sanctions, including from the Department of Commerce, that are significantly restricting the export of chips and technology, sophisticated chips and technology, to China, Russia, and other countries. And this is now being expanded to the Middle East because there's a strong feeling that this sort of technology, once in Saudi Arabia, will make its way to China pretty dramatically. And so it's a very complex geopolitical situation. Having said that, my co-author, Paul Pilzer, who has spent extensive time in China and has very significant relationships over there, believes very strongly that there needs to be a détente between the United States and China. They need to form a working relationship. It doesn't mean they won't be competitive. That doesn't mean they won't be at odds with one another, but they need to work together. And the future of the world economy and perhaps world peace is dependent on the U.S. and China, which comprise almost 50% of the productivity or gross national product in the world. They need to find a way to work together. That's at odds with other points of view who believe that China is definitely going to steal our technology and is going to be competing with us in a very mendacious way. I think you can say that more clearly with Russia. Russia has no good intentions vis-a-vis the U.S. whatsoever. My experience in dealing with Chinese scientists and economists has been much more favorable, where there has been genuine cooperation among scientists. And, it's kind of amazing as you see the development of atomic energy and physics in the world, how much sharing of ideas there has been among scientists worldwide, and the kind of cooperation you see. There's competition in terms of publishing papers and coming up with solutions to problems, but there's also incredible cooperation. And my experience with the Chinese has been, on balance, pretty favorable. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be cautious, and that I don't necessarily disagree with the export controls. I do question how practical they are and whether we're really going to be able to inhibit China from getting, from NVIDIA and other companies, these very advanced chips. But I think it is appropriate to put in place some guardrails and to be cautious with respect to China. But I'm hopeful, as Paul is, that on balance, we get to the point where we can cooperate a bit more with China and work with them, because I think it's in all our interests.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the other things I know that the book talks about, and it's something that we've been dealing with on this network and everything, is the kind of ways that there is a broken social welfare and healthcare system, and all along those lines. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the nature of AI and how technology is playing into that, because apparently there is a reevaluation of what is going on, even with our social welfare system. I would even argue with our prison system and a number of other systems that are existing as well, that maybe AI can help in those kind of developments as well. But I was just wondering your thoughts around that.
Well, AI certainly can make matters clearer and help us analyze data to come up with solutions. But ultimately, I think it comes down to a clear-eyed policy. You're quite right. I mean, in the U.S., our social welfare systems are broken. They're not efficient. They provide things rather than choice. And they're very complicated. Just look at our medical systems. If you ever tried to figure out what kind of Medicare you should have and to sign up for supplemental insurance with your Medicare, it's a mess, and it's unnecessarily difficult to understand. And the idea of imposing penalties on people for not signing up within a certain time frame seems, on balance, kind of absurd. So, the question is not so much how AI is going to help us, but it could, but rather, do we have the will to look at these systems objectively and try to come up with something that's cleaner and better? And Paul, in the book, suggests that it may be time to consider universal basic income, which is a controversial subject, particularly because Paul's historically a fairly conservative Republican, and for him to come up with the idea of universal basic income to the right seems blasphemous and not consistent with his past positions as an economist. However, his point of view is, let's do away with a lot of these complex systems and these multi-levels and simply have a system to replace it at probably less cost, whereby each person, regardless of financial circumstances, receives a stipend every month of $1,000, $2,000. This doesn't put anyone on easy street or create a situation where people will not be working, but it's a safety net. And for anyone, a divorced mother of three who's working two jobs, the idea of having an extra $1,000 a month would be huge, particularly if there's an illness in the family, a car breaks down, or any of these other real world practical issues. So, that's Paul's point of view. And again, it's controversial, but there's something to be said for simplifying the system and simply providing a cash stipend every month, not to put, again, anyone in a situation where they don't have to work, but giving them some flexibility in their lives. And an interesting example of this is the prison system. When a prisoner is released, his job prospects are very limited. There's a prejudice against him or her because of their history. And for someone like that to have $1,000, $2,000 a month coming in, that will give them the flexibility to transition to a more productive life, because without that, they probably revert back to, the criminal behavior that put them in prison in the first place. And of course, there's a whole issue with respect to our prison system, and we have more people in prisons than any other country, in part because we're a big country, but in part because our criminal justice system and our prison system is pretty dysfunctional and assigns blame rather than trying to get people and move them in a proper direction.
You were saying it assigns blame versus doing what? You broke out there just for a second.
Well, it assigns blame rather than trying to figure out a solution to the problem and give people an opportunity. Once somebody's caused a crime and is in prison, you can blame them, but basically what you should be concerned about is, how do we turn this situation around? How do we make their lives better, and as a result, make everyone's lives better? Because, I would submit that many of the people in prison are not bad people. They don't have bad intentions, but they do need a chance. And a lot of times their circumstances, their broken homes, poverty has created a situation where, they end up doing bad things. And if we can alleviate that a little bit, give people a little bit of hope and a little bit of a safety net, that might be incredibly useful and move us in the right direction. With respect to artificial intelligence will play a role in this if we let it, because it's going to permit us to understand the statistics and the data and help us make better decisions, perhaps. And this is just one example is where perhaps some form of universal basic income combined with data analysis from artificial intelligence will help us make better decisions.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'll bring in some of my other panelists as well, just out of curiosity, because I know that Jacoby is in the gaming industry, and all along those lines, what got you into the movie making field? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it something that you came into later in life? Because, like you said, you have made a ton of movies, and some of them we may know, some of them we may not know. But if you want to share about the movie making that you have done, and also what got you into the movie making field.
Well, as you suggest, it's been something I've always had wanted to do since, when I was a teenager watching the James Bond movies. I would sit there and wonder, this is pretty complicated. Who paid for this? And how did this all happen? So I was very interested in the structure of the business as well as the creative side. But I'm from Wisconsin. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin Law School and Business School. Practiced law for 5 years, doing mostly tax and securities work, but wanted to be in business, and so moved into real estate and other businesses for a number of years, both in this country and overseas. Made many good friends in those businesses. And relocated to Dallas, Texas, where now for many, many years, it's a great place to travel from. And it's, a city that is a business type town and no state income tax. So it has, many advantages. And then about 25 years ago, I decided, I want to take a look at the movie business, the entertainment business, and see if there might be a place for me to work in that industry. And like many of us, I was intrigued by, learning more about this. So I started studying. I taught entertainment law at Southern Methodist University, Dedman School of Law in Dallas for 5 years, because a good way to learn something is to try to teach it. And I enjoyed that. And then I met my business partner, Paul Kolishman, different Paul, who was, had produced at that point about 50 movies and was looking for a new opportunity because his company had been sold. And we formed a business and started buying and selling distribution rights to start out and going to the film markets. And we accumulated a film library, and then we started producing movies. And we produced a film called Gods and Monsters, which won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay. We later on produced a film called Departure, a Japanese language film, Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. We did a lot of television and have been nominated for 5 Emmys. We won one a couple years ago for a series called Girls' Voices Now, which is about the challenges faced by young women of color in Los Angeles. And the second season of it, which is coming up, we're hopeful will be nominated again. We'll see. My business partner, Paul Kolishman, is gay. And as a result, we formed a television network and streaming service called Here TV, which is aimed at the gay and lesbian audience. It's been very successful for us. It's one of our more valuable assets. Nothing pornographic, but films that are of interest to that audience, featuring, in many cases, gay characters. And, that's a business we continue to run. We also have a strong e-commerce presence, providing products to the gay and straight audience, various both pharmaceuticals and other practical products, including menswear. And these businesses have kind of worked for us. It's not been without struggle. I think the movie business is the most difficult business I've tried. And it's one thing after another, but it's been interesting to solve the problems. and to build the businesses, and we continue to do so. So that's how I kind of segued into this business, and fortunately, it's worked.
It sounds great and everything. I didn't catch the departure one, so you just a little bit about that. You did cut out on that part, but I think I caught most
Sure.
of the rest of it. So, what was that movie that was called Departure and all along those lines, or it had Departure in the title?
Departures was a Japanese language film. It won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. And it came about because, I was sent a rough cut of the film to view, and I was on the treadmill, and I started tearing up about midway through the film. So I immediately got off the treadmill and said, let's get involved with this film. And so we got involved in the production, and we found the music for the film, and played an important role, and then distributed the film. And initially, we were surprised pleasantly that the film was shortlisted for the Academy Awards. We had had that happen before with other foreign films that we had, because we've done a lot of foreign co-productions over the years. And then, lo and behold, it got nominated. And it was not a favorite. A French film called The Class and an Israeli film called Waltz with Bashir were supposed to compete. But our film was a gentle, kind film, and those other two films were rather shrill. So the night before the Academy Awards, we had a nice dinner with the Japanese actors and director. And I said, I've seen all the other films, and we may not win, but we do have the best movie. And so we'll see what happens. And the next evening, Liam Neeson announced the winner, and lo and behold, we had won. So it was a little bit of a fluke, but a nice one. And certainly, I think the director and the actors deserved it because it was, it was a nice turn of events for them, and of course for us. And I recommend, if you have a chance, to see it. It's been on Netflix. I think it's on Mubi right now, and it's a good film.
Sounds great and everything. Hey, Jacoby, you're in the gaming space, in the esports space, and all along those lines. So, do you have any question for Stefan, and all in that kind of way, as he is in the AI space, but also in the movie space, which I know is a interest of yours as well?
Yeah, I mean, all the spaces. I'm got my hands in similar places as well. In terms of, I guess, to get back to, let's see, we'll go back to what, since we're in, well, actually, we'll stay in the movie and film area. So, being a producer, what grabs you in terms of deciding that this is the film that I want to do?
Well, it has to be something that you feel that you could contribute to, and perhaps develop something that would be effective. You have to take a look at the budget and the revenue prospects for the film. I mean, it's the movie business, and you have to make sure you stay in business. And that means you don't, just do something because it's a pure passion project. If you are a studio and actually putting up the money or arranging the financing, which is what we do. So I think the first thing is to figure out whether it's within your competence to do it, and whether it's something that the material you understand and can relate to. And secondly, it comes down to, can you break even or make money doing this? You don't want to do something that'll take you out of the business completely. A good movie project, of course, starts with the script. And I love working with writers and reading scripts and providing notes. I've written a number of scripts myself for films that we've done. I don't consider myself a particularly great screenwriter, but I do enjoy doing it, and I enjoy the structure. For us, we're tend to do films that the scripts are a 3-act structure with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's the way storytelling has been done for thousands of years. And it kind of works for the most part. You can get outside that scope if you want, but that's kind of a dicey proposition and often doesn't work. And you have to see, given the budget, can you attract the kind of cast that you feel will function well with the story? We tend to work a lot with actors who are not particularly well known. In some cases, not SAG members. We've done a lot of films in Canada where an actor may or may not be SAG. He may be a Canadian actor, he or she. And we like working with actors that are not particularly established within the field because you never know where it's going to go. And if you look at a number of actors who we employed when they were on the way up and became, major stars. But at the time we worked with them, they were, looking for a job, basically, and trying to establish themselves. We also work with people who are arguably on the way down, older actors whose career has perhaps peaked. And frankly, they want to work and they need to work. I mean, the garage doors need to, earn a paycheck. And so we work with a lot of established actors or actors at the peak of their
He's having some
careers.
technology problems.
Yeah, we're kind of flashing back and forth, aren't we?
Yeah.
I have a pretty strong signal,
Yeah.
which is good. Hopefully we can maintain it to the end.
Yeah. Hopefully and everything all along those lines. You mentioned some actors and I did not catch them that were those that were discovered by you and all along those lines. So if you can maybe say some of those names again, because I did not catch those.
Well, I didn't go through it, but Brendan Fraser, we got him when he was fairly early, and probably is arguably one of his finest performances. Of course, he won the Academy Award for The Whale this last year, but we worked with him 25 years ago. We worked with Ian McKellen before he was a big deal. He ended up being in The Lord of the Rings and X-Men and a variety of other films, and now he's a big deal. And there are many others who are regular TV actors or movie actors who, again, got their start with us in a small role where they weren't paid much, but they were working them in a proper direction.
You mentioned a couple of things. I'm actually going to bring one of our Canadian gentlemen on, that being Sasha, that you had mentioned. We got the investment show coming on later and all along those lines. And you had actually earlier mentioned NVIDIA. So just wanted your take on NVIDIA, because definitely I know that Sasha is in the investment space, and he was, I don't know if he's still big on NVIDIA, but he was big on NVIDIA at one point or another. So what was your take on that particular company? Because you did mention them earlier.
Well, NVIDIA produces most, at this point, of the very sophisticated chips that are used in artificial intelligence. So they're one of the most important companies in the world. They've had an incredible run-up in their stock price. So if you had been prescient enough to like Sasha was, you did very well with that. Whether that will continue is hard to say. I mean, the future looks pretty bright for NVIDIA. However, they are going to have some competitors. The Chinese are very aggressive in supporting Huawei and some of the other major chip manufacturers in their country. And NVIDIA is going to have competition both in the US and in China. So I don't know that it'll continue its current run. No one does. No one can predict the stock market particularly. But, They certainly, if you had to name, the dozen or so most important companies in tech, they would definitely be on the list. Perhaps right now in the top 4 or 5.
Yeah.
They're the number one for gaming because of the video card that they created, and then the same thing with cryptocurrency because of that video card. That's where crypto came from because they use that card.
Sidebar on crypto, couldn't we?
Yep.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother sidebar, like you said, and everything. Sasha, your take on the NVIDIA and your take just in general on the conversation?
Well, NVIDIA, yes, I agree. It's an excellent company with great prospects. Their stock may be run a little bit ahead of itself. So, for the last several months, I never owned any shares of NVIDIA. All I was doing, I was selling covered calls and cash covered puts. So basically, I made on options on NVIDIA way much more money than on NVIDIA's stock itself, because I never allowed myself to hold NVIDIA for a long period of time, say more than 3-4 weeks at a time, here and there. I don't think that its price can be supported, at least at this time. Maybe the situation will change in a few months from now, and the stock will become a little bit more investors friendly, so to speak, because right now the short-term prospects, not only Nvidia's but all stock market, is because of the war in Israel and many other events in the world. So it's quite spooky situation for investors. And I've just before I joined you, I watched a speech of Joe Biden in Israel, and what he said is that United States war are and will be supporters of Israel for any time in the future, and it's unwavering. And he understands the grief of families who lost their relatives, friends on October 7th, which is the most horrific day in the Jewish state since the Holocaust. And the idea of a Jewish state is to make sure that Holocaust will never, ever repeat it in history. So there is a crime, there is a punishment. The Hamas by itself, or with little help from his friends, unleashed incredible attack against Israel and its citizens. Israel must protect their citizens. Israel must to take out Hamas, regardless of cost. They are providing humanitarian help to Palestinians and will be providing. And Biden mentioned in his speech that the humanitarian efforts must be continued. He also said that concerning yesterday's horrific bombing of not Hamas, Palestinian hospital, that was the result. And now he's not talking, just relying on Israeli information. Now he's relying on U.S. Secret information. Who is behind this horrible bombing? Apparently, it's another Palestinian organization by the name Muslim Jihad. So this is supposedly, hopefully, will cool off all this uprising of Arabs in different countries or so on, mostly in Arab countries, because in Europe, all these activities are very strongly suppressed by police, because Europe now is of the opinion it's a time for law and order. And all this uprising, because, it's so artificial. The uprising started after 40 minutes, that horrific accident with the hospital. They were already on the streets. How they could be organized so quickly if it wouldn't be a central campaign led by Islamic extremists
Well, one of the things that we had been talking about earlier, and I'd love to hear definitely Stefan's thoughts around this and earlier, because that's not what I had gotten to, but I was going to get to that and everything, because I do know that you have said in the past that technology as it is developing, that it could be in the hands more of autocrats, despots, oligarchs, and the criminal element. So I was wondering if you had some thoughts around that, because I do know that that is something else that you have brought up, is that that is one of the dangers that AI, as we are going, could be facing. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts around that.
Well, I do, but I'd like to ask, if I may, Sasha, a question.
Yes, please.
What do you think Hamas? What was their plan with respect to this attack?
The attack itself is very simple, because by this horrific attack, which was not only very thoroughly prepared in a great secrecy, by the way, we are just getting information that Hezbollah, who's supposed to be on their side and attack at the same time, Hezbollah was not even informed of this upcoming Hamas attack. So somebody has to take pictures. Remember, when all these killings, everything was on the cameras. So the immediate effect of this horrific attack was to make as many videos as possible, to spread them around the world and show what a terrific day for Israel it was. Now, obviously, they knew that there's attack, counterattack, if you will, from Israel will come sooner or later. And it's not going to be proportionate attack. It's impossible to do, because to make a proportional attack, Israel had to organize a music festival in Gaza, attack and kill just as many people as Hamas did. They have to rape and kill as many women and mutilate children in exact quantities as Hamas did. We are talking
Sasha,
about
just hold on.
I haven't done yet.
Okay.
I'm answering Stephen's question. So this is in view to create uprising. It was orchestrated by Iran, by Russia. So all these axis of evil, which today is Russia, Iran, North Korea, hopefully China will have enough wisdom to stay away from it. Hopefully. Not sure about that. Putin is right now in China. If you remember the Clash of Civilization by Huntington, what he was saying is that this civilization, different civilizations, they can coexist as long as they are not trying to invade on territory of the other civilization, because they cannot mingle. They are so different in their culture, history, language, just name it. They cannot merge, as Fukuyama was suggesting, into one past history, past governments, complete globalism and all that wonderful things. It's not going to happen, not in the next 575 years. So therefore, listen to Huntington, read it one more time, and see how he views that. So civilization that will ever lose the war will be taken out from history.
Thank you. To answer your question, Mark, we're already seeing autonomous weapon systems managed by AI. These are systems where the targeting or even the kill decision will be made by a machine rather than by a human. The initial position of the Department of Defense was that we would not use autonomous weapon systems decision mechanically, but always have a human involved. We've now backed off of that because China and Korea and many of the other countries that Sasha has cited are developing pure autonomous weapon systems. So this is going to be one of the most immediate dangers of artificial intelligence. Hopefully we can autonomous weapon systems and other artificial intelligence issues something akin to the accords on nuclear power, which govern international behavior right now. Unfortunately, that is part of a rules-based system and society, and there are a number of countries that don't seem to favor a rules-based system at this point. So it's very important to manage AI internationally, and to manage autonomous weapons systems internationally. I'm not that optimistic at this point, but I'm hopeful. What do we do in our country with respect to setting up guardrails, with respect to the dangers of artificial intelligence? Well, I think we do what we can do. And if other countries do not set up these same systems, we can't control that. But we can, within our own country and our own systems, develop some thoughtful and ethical approaches to this, and that's something we should do. One of the ways of dealing with AI, frankly, is to become more human and to be in a position where we are touching other humans and developing our humanity. I mean, we've all been in a restaurant where we've watched a couple at the table next to us where they don't talk to each other the whole evening. They just both look at their phones and perhaps exchange texts. We need to, as human beings, look for ways to reach out to one another and to be of service to others. I mean, that's ultimately what will make you happy in your life and ultimately will permit you. So one of the ways we distinguish ourselves from the machines is our humanity, and to be kinder, to be more thoughtful, and to look out for our fellow humans. It's a soft approach, but I think it's kind of important in these times where, on some level, we're being threatened by the machines.
Along those same lines, I just wondered, because we're going to wind down and
Well,
everything.
Mark,
It kind of comes back to what Sasha said, and we go a little bit over, but it kind of comes back to what Sasha says. Even with AI, I don't know that, how can I put it, that, because I'm still trying to figure out, because I hear what Sasha was saying, the purpose, because I don't know that mass killings are going to mobilize in a protest and all along those lines and in that kind of way and everything. So I actually think that if that was what they were hoping to do, that was a serious tactical mistake and all along those lines, because I can't see it being a mobilization force the way you're talking about, Sasha.
I think you're making an excellent point, Mark. I still do not understand what their end game was in this attack, other than to attract attention and to arguably inflict some sort of damage, terrible damage to the Israeli state. But where does it get you? If anything, it's turned everyone's attention to the challenges faced by Israel. And setting aside this hospital bombing for the moment, which probably was a separate, distinct event by another terrorist group.
Stephen, on the other hand, may I ask you a question? What was the final purpose of 9/11 terrorists?
You're asking me, sir?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Well, I do not know what was in their minds.
The same thing with Hamas in attack against Israel. We don't know their minds, except for all years, for the last 75 years since Israel was born, there was only one purpose of the Palestinians, is to destroy the state of Israel and kill all the Jews. So that actually fairly explains fairly well the actions of Hamas, because it's obviously right into that doctrine.
Sasha, that's the
So
same thing
Sasha,
that Ron
So
DeSantis said, and I don't agree with him that every Palestinian is in the same category and that they are all in one boat, because that's kind of the argument that he made about the refugees, and that's what AOC took him to task on. And I agree that she was right to take him on task on that matter, because I'm not going to put everybody in one group into one category and think that they all have group think and all along those lines, because that's what I think that we are in the danger of doing, is thinking that they are all thinking the same way. I mean, me and Jatofia are both African American gentlemen, and I know that we don't always think the same thoughts. We might have some things that we agree on, but we have some things that we disagree on, even though we are both of the same ethnic group and all along those lines, and we are different parts of the ethnic group. I come from the light skinned side, he comes from the dark skinned side, but definitely we don't have the same thoughts and all along those lines. So I don't think it's fair to make the statement that they all have the same belief. And like I said, there's things that I don't like about that I don't agree with AOC, but that one I do agree. I think that she was right to call Ron DeSantis
Mark,
out.
you're entitled to your opinions. We live in a relative freedom of speech. It's not absolute, it's a relative freedom of speech. Because with freedom of speech come responsibilities. Okay? And I don't want to go much farther into it, but I always say the person who believes in freedom of speech always must have ready $25,000 retainer to his lawyer, because whenever you say, somebody may find it offensive and sue you, not only personally, but maybe from his organization, wherever he belongs, or so on. And you will have to get a lawyer and a retainer to, not the greatest lawyer, but say medium kind of a lawyer. It's $25,000. Steven, do you have somebody cheaper than that?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Sasha. I have lost you lost me on your whole argument to justify saying something offensive. So
No,
um,
I haven't suggested that you said something offensive.
no, but
All
what I'm saying is,
I think is that the freedom of speech also asking for responsibilities. You cannot.
as we decided yesterday, freedom of speech is there for everyone,
No,
but that does not
I
give you
disagree.
freedom of
There is no
conscience.
such thing. There is a
Listen to what I'm
relative
saying.
freedom of speech
You
as long
have
as you
freedom of
don't
speech,
hurt
but you do not have
other
freedom of
people, their
consequences.
interests. There are consequences and there are responsibilities. Okay, and you, as intelligent person, have to understand what I'm talking about.
Gentlemen, I apologize.
No, no problem. You
I
got
have
to
a hard
go.
stop.
No,
And
you have a hard stop. And one of the things I wanted to have you say, and we're going to end the show, I've appreciated your insights on to AI. And we had a little bit of technical problems, but you still got through most of the key points and everything. But if you can tell folks how you can be reached and the book and all along those lines, we may go a few more minutes, but we're going to wrap up anyway. But Stefan, if you can tell folks how you can be reached and the nature of the book and how they can order the book, I would greatly appreciate that.
no problem. The book is available. The book's The New Roaring Twenties, and it deals with technology and AI over the next 10 years. Um, it's very accessible, very readable. It's not a highly technical book. It's available online on Amazon and Walmart and the other online places where one buys books. It's also in Barnes and Noble and your independent bookstore. Most of them carry it, and I urge whoever is interested in what's going to happen over the next 10 years, take a look, and they may gain something from it. And I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to visit with yourself and everyone else. I'm grateful.
Appreciate you. Appreciate your insights and everything. Hopefully, we can get you back on in the near future as well. But definitely appreciated your insights.
No problem. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah. No, he was saying bye.
I
But
think, yeah, he said bye. I don't know. I don't think he's popping back in.
he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any further comments to what Sasha was saying, but otherwise, you're ready to.
I was just going to point out that one of the bigger things that AI is going to push out in terms of the war, which is going on, because you have the deep fakes, you have everything else. It's the information that's flooding that people are, just grabbing and running with. Hence the reason I say to believe anything blindly, especially now in the fog of war, is bad.
Agree.
Um, so, I mean, even with the hospital incident, the IDF was saying that it was this. The Hamas was saying it was this. Others were saying it was this. Right now, we just got to wait for the investigation to go on because right now we're in the middle of the fog of war, and
For
there are
me,
just so many. And that's like 300. That's hundreds of plus lives, and that's what caused the people. The Arab countries have been already at unrest because of what Israel's been doing, and when that took place.
what did Israel did on October 7th? Remind me, please. What exactly?
There was an incident on August. It was an incident in August where
On
Israel
August.
actually.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. So
And-
they were waiting until October 7th to vindicate that whatever Israel did in August, which
Sasha, I'm talking about the Arab nations who are upset and the Muslim countries that the way the Palestinians have been treated a lot by, and that's what a lot of the Arab countries are mad at and upset about.
and
And
you
we
know what?
forget about that.
Okay, listen.
And
Whether-
don't get me wrong, yeah, I'm not justifying anything. I'm just pointing out that there's a root cause to a lot of things, and we just kind of
Okay. So let's rectify all the bad things what Israel did lately and not so lately. So okay, so October 7th, they had a dog. They killed 1,400 Israelis. Let's see.
What about the 5 war? There's been 5 wars in the past 15 years.
Right.
So
And
there's a war and so in terms of the people that are lost on both sides,
don't tell me about both sides. Israeli
no,
know how
I'm
many
talking about the Palestinian people.
Palestinian people. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so there's a ton of
they
Palestinian
lost-
people who are just
they
killed,
lost
and
with
there's
their patron
there's no
states,
one
Arabian states. They
sympathizing or
lost
sympathizing.
5 wars. So now they want to lose a 6th war. So because if Israeli will not,
It's not the Palestinian people fighting this war.
who was fighting them? Arab countries on behalf of Palestinians, or what? Who was fighting them?
You have terrorist organizations that are going in Hamas, which just happened, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so when the terrorist organization Hamas is a terrorist organization, they are horrible. Everybody is against Hamas and especially what they've done. But the people that are paying the cost right now isn't Hamas.
So
The people that are paying the cost are the Israeli civilians and the Palestinian civilians.
Agree. So the right
And so with that, in terms of the amount of people that are lost in there, the Israeli civilians, they've talked about the amount of people that are lost. There's sadness for the Israelis that are lost in there, and they're less than 1,000. But there are 4,000 that are Palestinians that are lost, but there's no sympathy there. So you have Arab nations seeing this and the lack of sympathy. You have the Palestinian people seeing this and the lack of sympathy. And so therefore, what are they to do when nobody cares if they live or die?
Nobody cares about the Israelis who were killed on October 7th.
I just pointed out the world is sympathetic to this.
I want to tell you something.
Israeli people who are being killed.
I want to tell you something, my friend. Israelis don't need sympathy or condolences.
Yes, they do. They need
sympathy.
No, they need compassion.
They don't. Golda Meir said when she was confronted by Kissinger during the Yom Kippur War, and he said, "Oh, Golda, you can't even imagine what outrage will be in the world, and what kind of notes from United Nations will come your way." And you know what she answered? It's better to get notes from United States than condolences. Okay, so this is position of Israel. Israel has been organized 75
You keep going down this crazy path. I'm talking to Sasha Starr, and I'm trying to explain to Sasha Starr that, take for instance, when we're talking about what's going on right now, Israel told 1.1 million people to leave the north and go south. Bombs went off in the south. They can't go south. They can't escape. So these Palestinian people, they said, what was it, hundreds of thousands have already gone south. But then tons more had to stop because the bombs went off. So if you're going to die up here and you're going to die down here, and you can't get out either way, what do you do? I'm asking you, Sasha, what do you do?
Well, there is obviously a humanitarian catastrophe. I recognize that. There are ways to help it, and actually, Biden mentioned that in his speech that humanitarian corridors should be established and as many Palestinians should be helped. He said that in his speech, but you see, when it's all started on October 7th, the rage of Israelis to avenge their killed daughters, sons, grandchildren.
We agree with the rage.
The
But
rage
should
is
that rage
incredible.
return to the Palestinian people?
Well, how you can separate Palestinian
You
people from
can.
Hamas? It's their government. Hamas is a government,
You're,
whether rightly or wrongly. But the fact is
but
that
then you're
unlike
saying that the people.
ISIS, you see,
So then,
unlike ISIS, which was a kind of intergovernment,
so Sasha,
international organization,
then
Hamas is not.
what you're saying,
Mhm.
because based on your beliefs towards the Ukrainian and Russian war that's also going on, if
Yeah.
Russia were to, before Zelensky got there was a pro-Russian pro-Russian president in Ukraine. If that pro-Russian president in Ukraine were still there and turn Ukraine over to Russia, in your mind, you're saying that the Ukrainian people love Russia.
You know, thank God, this situation in Ukraine is impossible because in Ukraine, will of people matters more than any president or any government, and that's exactly how pro-Russian president Yanukovych was deposed in 2013-14 simply by will of people. They
Okay.
came to the
And
Maidan.
then we'll stay in Ukraine because of the will of the people.
Yeah.
Did he come in and kill off all the other opposition party?
There were
No, he didn't. Sasha.
about 100 people killed.
He did not come in and kill off the opposition party, which Hamas did.
What's the logic behind that?
The logic behind that is the fact that the people in Palestine who have the Palestinian Authority have no ability and really are trying to protect their families from being murdered by the same people you keep claiming rules them. So in protection, they try and stay silent so they do not end up with their family dead. So out of fear, that's what Hamas is ruling out of. So therefore, these people, the Palestinian people, even those that want to get out, even now, some can't because, physical ability. Some are in hospitals. Some have kids. Some
know that.
And so you have all these issues, but and then some are afraid because they're putting targets on their backs because Hamas is just going to kill them anyway. So now you've got, you keep claiming that they had such the easy ability to do this. One, we're not in that culture.
I never said that they have easy ability. No, I never suggested that because it's not true. They don't have easy ability. But you see, what I'm trying to tell you,
you keep saying that the Palestinian people, this is their government. This is what they wanted.
I don't know if they wanted. I know that they've been in power for the last 16 years. And if they didn't want it, but it's not.
You just literally said they wanted it.
Way. The Palestinians will never go into open uprising against their government. They will keep it. Why? Because they're scared.
So now we have the point that they're scared. So if you're scared, that does not mean that you want it.
It doesn't matter. The fact is,
it does, Sasha.
They don't need any opposition.
It matters
because Hamas will destroy anyone who will say that he is against
you
Hamas.
You just said they're scared. You cannot be scared.
They are scared.
Okay. Yeah, if they are scared, they're protecting their families against a terrorist organization.
Maybe they want Hamas to rule them. I don't know I'm suggesting is, in my opinion, they're scared. But maybe I'm not right. Maybe they love Hamas, and maybe they want Hamas to rule them.
You keep going under this logic that they love it. They love being abused. They love being used as human shields. They love being tortured. They love their seeing all this stuff, all
That's
these
not true, in
killings.
your opinion, right? So the
That's
only
what
other
you are saying.
explanation. So the only other explanation is scared. I'm trying to say now for 12 times in a row, there are two situations. One of them is right. Either they're scared, which is understandable, and
It's
another one that
more
they
than
come
two.
out to rule. Okay, give me the third one.
You have multiple. You have fear for family. You have some
I
that this is
said
the
that
only
they are
wait, let me
feared.
yeah, I couldn't even finish the rest of my comment, could I? They said they're scared. There's also opportunity in terms of finances, in terms of life. This is something they've grown up in. This is the only culture they know. There's a multitude of answers of why they are there. You also have kids. You also have kids that have no ability to change anything that you're talking about, that are
Tutorial.
being
Everything
killed.
what you're talking
So,
about is exactly that they are scared. Now
and
you're
yes,
going
Lee, many do
farther.
work in
What is there
Israel, but
scared
also
of?
many cannot get opportunity
I,
to work in Israel.
okay, opportunity. Okay, there are 15 reasons why they're scared. All I said is one word. They are scared. It's
We
not enough.
agree.
You want to qualify.
So no. What I'm
Exactly.
saying, you said that there are only two answers. I said that there's a multitude. I gave you multiple. So that's why I'm
Everything what
saying we
you're
cannot
talking
just
about
say there's just one thing.
part
This is
of
a
being
bigger
scared.
thing than we
You're just
know.
going step by step. What means scared?
And
Scared
then
of family, scared of their low life, but I already indicated it. It's
and then
all part of being scared.
Sasha, earlier when our guest was talking about recidivism and why people commit crimes and so on and so forth, and I pointed out one of the biggest reasons for recidivism is the lack of opportunity. Well, you know what else plays in the Middle East and in the same area that we're talking about is that lack of opportunity. So again, there's a multitude of answers of why, multitude of reasons why people do particular things, and we cannot just say, well, they want them and blah 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 blah. That doesn't work that way. The thing is, we should be focused on what we again agreed on before, the humanitarian situation with the Palestinian people, the same way that we're working on the humanitarian situation with the Israeli people. It's a powder keg there, and we need to do more than just come in and say, yes, Israel. I mean, don't get me wrong, we support Israel because they are a partner, but we also got to realize that we cannot just go in and be like the terrorists and kill innocent civilians of the Palestinian people or support the killing of innocent civilians. That is the same thing that's the same thing that we're complaining that the terrorists are doing. So in a situation, we should really try and work it out. We should really try and create those pathways for humanitarian aid. That's
And to
our
Lee's point, because we've actually gone a little bit over, but I knew that we had the other show. I'm actually working on what he was suggesting because I'm actually trying to bring some people in that are both from the Palestinian viewpoint as well as the viewpoint from Israel. And like I said, it might be a matter of days, it might be a matter of weeks, but I am trying to reach out to some folks that I know that are in those communities because, like you said, Jacoby, that is stuff that we may not have a full understanding of, and all along those lines, because there is definitely some aspects of the conversation that we might not understand as fully. So I'm trying to get people to bring in that can give us their perspective that might be vastly different from our perspective as well. Because one of the things that I've been hearing is that they're just like we feel that attack was brutal and atrocious. There are some on the other side that feel that there were attacks that were done to them, and there are some that would say that it was a back and forth. And I know that in wars, that back and forth can have you going for ever and a day, and that's why we oftentimes have these long wars that last forever. I know that my dad spent some time in Eritrea, and I think Eritrea and Ethiopia are still fighting each other, and all along those lines. So that is definitely something that goes on in that space if we don't have a full understanding. And I think that that's personally what Mr. And I know that he put off his meeting with the Jordan president, but I think that he was trying to get perspectives from not just our ally, because Israel is a strong ally, it has always been a strong ally, but also some of the other allies, because there are some Arab nations like Egypt, I want to say Saudi Arabia and others that are allies as well as some of those that might be part of the enemy forces as well. But I do think that he is over there trying to get different perspectives. That's just my philosophy and what I think he's trying to get. And who knows, he may come back and answer in a way that some people may like and some people may not like. But
and weirdly enough, because how we're trying to figure out the whole conflict resolution in that situation and trying to figure out the root of the problem. How do we empathize with both sides? How do we do this? If you bring it back to this area, bring it back to the States, it's the same thing. Why people try, you could even take it to any situation that we're dealing with here. Similarly, take, for instance, we talk about the war between the Palestinians and Israelis has been going on for decades. Well, the battle between the races has been going on for decades here, but we, again, do the same thing. We talk past each other, but never talk to each other and never really try and solve the situation and fix the problem. There's so many wounds there that, that happened 400 years ago. Well, there's a problem that you forget that our history hadn't changed that far. So there's a lot of things that even the situation, the solution in the Middle East can be applied to many situations that we're dealing with, even closer to home.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. And on that note, we'll get on out of here. I know that Sacha's got his investment show at 1:00 and all along those lines.
You're invited to be on investment show because we will talk a lot about politics as well. Because today, investment outside of politics and completely politics is here, the investment is there. It doesn't work. Absolutely nothing.
So, ironically, investment has played. There have been conversations around investment and even around change and politics. Because one of the first times that I heard about investment conversations was ironically during the era that I was in college, which was around the time of the apartheid fight, and there was a lot of blockades and a lot of attacks against certain companies because they were invested in South Africa. So you are right that investment is oftentimes tied into the geopolitical, because I saw that way back in the 80s and the 70s with the apartheid situation. I want to say Coca-Cola and a number of other companies were boycotted because of their role in supporting the government of the apartheid regime at that time and everything.
Okay.
Also, interestingly enough, in terms of the investment stuff, Sacha, you can talk about how Microsoft finally got the okay to buy Blizzard, and that's a big investment situation. Or Activision.
Well, but it was going on for more than a year, back and forth or so on. So it's because I'm not in that type of gaming stage. I don't know whether it's beneficial for gamers or it's not. So supposedly there is less competition because Microsoft now owns Blizzard.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about that as we walk out the door, we can also talk about the loss of jobs at Epic Games, because they just had that big thing, which is a big investment thing as well, because they just fired a bunch of people in Epic, so that could influence their investments.
That's right.
Yep, I got hit.
Okay. See you at 1:00.
All right, see you.
Bye-bye.